So today we're going to have a go at drawing trees, and if you have paints you'll also be able to take part in the second part. We're going to do it with watercolours hopefully, and also acrylics. So let's get going. So to begin with, I'm going to say there are many different ways in which you can draw and paint trees. Lots of different styles, lots of different versions. So I'm going to show you the way I draw trees, and you can have a go at that. And then you can move on to looking at different styles from different artists, maybe draw some from your own photos. And please take the pressure off yourself today. Don't worry if they start looking terrible. Just go for it, keep on practicing, and then the more you do, the better they'll get. So before I start showing you how I go about drawing trees, I'm going to show you one of the most common ways we as art teachers see trees drawn. We normally see some kind of trunk, and then we see that, which could be some kind of fluffy cloud on the end of the stalk there. So how I would like you to have a go to start off with is by drawing guidelines, and these guidelines might look like that. So we've got a flat line, and then we've got a circular shape like a dome that goes all the way over the top. And this is like an oak tree, this one, so we're going to have a short trunk at the bottom here, and we're going to fit the foliage around this shape. So just split the trunk in two. I always split the trunk in 2 or 3 to start, and then we're going to have this shape, and it's going to come out and then in and out, and then we're just going to go all the way around the shape that we have formed, and we have the basics of an oak tree. And we might have eventually is little gaps that we can sort of add into our tree, where we might see the odd sort of branch coming up and out. You can obviously do this in a variety of ways, sticking with the same formula. So we have a flat start. This time we might go a bit taller with our dome. So this one may be perhaps getting smaller as we go up. This could be something a bit more like a pine tree. We may know it as a Christmas tree type. So there we have our basics to start off with. So we want no more trees like this. This is kind of all right, these two here, but obviously we're going to go a little bit more advanced as we go on now. So something that may help us as we go about painting our trees a bit later on is to actually understand the structure of the tree. So if you have a go at drawing a tree without the foliage to start off with, you can see that we are going up and out. So if you stick to this general rule and don't go back downwards at unusual angles, we should be good. And obviously as the branches go out, they will get thinner. And if it does look a bit too perfect, a bit too even, you can always do the odd branch that does sort of fall down slightly like this. Once you've had a go at practicing with a range of different trees, I'd like you to have a go at one and this time add shadows. So I'll show you how we're going to do this. So we start in the same way. I like the oak tree best, so I'm going to do line, a shape, and we'll rub this out on this one. This is our dome. Don't make it too even as well. Try and be creative as you go. Follow the guideline you've got, but like I say, try and make it original, so you can go beyond the line if you wish. Like that. And then we're going to very lightly map in where the trunks could be. So here you would see perhaps some of the branches that would come up and out. So you might see some there. Now we're going to imagine that the sun, or the light source, is coming down from this point here. So I'm using the pencil on the side a bit more. I'm going to just angle this way, because this is how I find it easy to shade. And I'm going to start quite dark, in fact very dark, I've gone in there, on the lower part of the foliage. And obviously one way to get even better as you go along is actually go from doing this from your head and following my instructions to actually looking at real examples of trees. That's definitely the best way to go about it. So once you've had a good play around and you've experimented loads, please have a look at some photos online. Next, really dark, let's start to go in with the actual branches. Great, I can now just use my finger just to smooth out a few areas, not all of it. Sometimes it's nice to see some of the marks, but just a few areas where it might just need to be slightly smoother. I'll do some shadows. There we go. And if you've got a rubber, which somewhere I have, here we go, we can then start to add in some highlights. Wanting to go a lot more darker on this whole patch here. There we go, already preferring it, that's better. So we have two paintbrushes that we're going to use today. We've got a pointy one and then we've got a flat brush like this one. Acrylic is great, it's got like a plastic coating within it, which means that it will be quite waterproof and you can layer really nicely. These are the colours that we're going to need. We're going to need a lot of yellow, tiny little bit of blue, and even a smaller amount of red to get a nice dark green colour. I've also got some black there if you do need to go a tiny bit darker. We're going to keep things really simple today. We're going to have just two colours that we're using. We're going to have the dark green, which we're going in with now, trying to keep the brush marks nice and loose, nice and expressive, and then we're going to mix a really light colour to do the highlights on top. With acrylic, it's important to know that you start with your darkest tones first, your darkest colours, and then you do your light on top. While your first layer of dark green is drying, mix some brown together and start to go in with your tree trunk and your branches, making sure that where the white patches that you have left, make sure you kind of fill in those areas with a few of the branches, remembering to go upwards and outwards. Now we are mixing our second layer of green. This is going to be mostly yellow, tiny bit of blue, and if you want to add some white in there, that'll make it really bright. So we're going to go in on the top layers of the foliage, so make sure that you're kind of leaving dark patches just showing underneath. At this point it's a good idea to mix a light brown, just add a little bit of white to the brown you've already got, and then you can go in with some nice highlights. I've mixed a slightly different green here by adding a tiny bit of red into the green I've already got, and then I want a shadow as well underneath that tree, and I think this looks quite good at this stage. One of the things I wasn't happy about was I went too heavy with the highlights, so I'm now going back in with some dark shadows just on the lower and the left side of the tree. Now with watercolour we can really have some fun here. I don't actually have any watercolours, so what I've done is I've just really watered down my acrylic paint. Now this is the complete opposite of acrylic in the fact that we are using the light colours first and then we're going to go in with the dark. So we've started with a really luminous yellowy green, and then we've kind of gone in while it's still wet with the lime green. And you'll probably notice my brush marks, I'm flicking, I'm kind of twizzling the brush, I'm just trying to be quite playful with it really. Finally, with the foliage section, we're going in with a dark green, and again I'm keeping it still wet so it's sort of bleeding and blending together. The difficulty with watercolour is knowing when to leave it and not to overwork it. Once we've finished this, you need to let it dry properly now before you go in with the brown branches. And this is the last bit. You just do what you've already learned, which is just to fill in those white gaps with some branches that are going up and out.